All right. WordPress uses an issue tracker called Trac, and what this does for us is it's a front-end interface to Subversion, which is version control software similar to Git. It allows us to use kind of a form of wiki markup so that we can cross-link descriptions, commit messages, issues, and just link all of that together so that we can track it, follow it, and have a nice little view of the world of the WordPress code base. It allows us to, gives us a timeline of everything that happens, including a roadmap so that we can plan ahead and scope out what will come in each release. So, to get to the place where you file bug reports, create tickets, create issues that you find in WordPress, on all of the WordPress pages, plugins or whatever, up the top you've got Get Involved. If you click on that, that'll bring you to this particular page, Make WordPress, and what we want is core in this case. So you just click on anywhere in that core window and that'll take you to our issue tracker. And this is the front page of our issue tracker. It's got a couple little quick links here and there, but what we're mainly interested in, or for this talk, is just on tickets. Once you click on tickets, we've got a bunch of different things that is probably quite overwhelming to try and follow or try and understand them all, but it gives us links to our milestones, things that have patches, things that don't have patches, and helps us sort of filter through all the different tickets ourselves. So what we're interested in is a ticket. So I've grabbed one of Gary's tickets. This is his first ticket for WordPress that he ever created, and it was adding emoji to WordPress. In the end, this turned out to be a pretty major bug fix for WordPress with a database issue that we had. It kind of stayed hidden and unknown for about 2 years before it was eventually fixed and deployed because of the complexity. So up the top we've got a ticket number. Then we have our title summary of what's going on in the ticket, a description of what's going on, who reported it. A milestone is something that will get set for which version it'll be included in, the eventual fix. The severity, at the moment where this particular one is marked as normal, but there's a few different values that the core committers will typically assign to it. If it breaks WordPress.org, because WordPress.org runs on what we call Trunc, which is the live code base. So they don't run versions, we run by the seat of our pants, so to speak. If it gets messed up, well, we know pretty quick because all our stuff doesn't work either. Component, in this particular case, it's database. I'll come back to those in a bit. Priority is similar to severity, that it might have a low severity but a high priority, that it kind of affects a lot of people more than others. Very rarely do the severity or priority change from normal. It's very rare. We have a version. This is when whatever the bug is describing when it was first introduced into core. So we know that for version 3.41 was when this problem started. Now we find that by digging through the SVN repository and looking when the original changes were done. We also assign a bunch of different keywords to things. Good first bug is one. If it's Something easy that we can get other contributors involved with to have a shot at, we can do that. Then we have has patch, or if it needs screenshots, or if if we need more feedback from the original reporter. There's a bunch of these different things that are all documented in our handbook. Up the top we've got the current status of the ticket, which in this case it's been closed. We can have a task type, which is an enhancement or a bug. In this case it was a task, and it's got a little bless thing because the core team had sort of sanctioned it as, yes, no matter what, this is going to happen kind of thing. The resolution, because this is in the past, it's marked as fixed. If a bug doesn't work or isn't reproducible by people, it'll sometimes be marked as invalid or won't fix. Key dates, when it was opened, when it was closed, last modified. And where are we? We're back to this one. All right. So to create a new ticket on WordPress, which is kind of what we want people to do, and Trac can be a little bit intimidating and daunting. There's a new ticket thing here somewhere. Maybe. Yeah. Up the top left, second line, create a new ticket. So then you're presented with our new ticket form, which the top gives a bit of a FAQ on what Trac is about, a couple of guidelines on helping you, and a couple of links. But the key to it is giving a title summary to the ticket and try and be as concise and to the point, short to the point as you can for the ticket. It just helps other people when they're looking through the tickets to understand at a glance what the issue is. Once you've entered in the ticket, you'll get a list of potentially other tickets that are related to it. So if you haven't searched for a bug, you might see, oh, hang on, someone else has already created a ticket that's pretty much identical to what I'm doing, and so you can have a look at that ticket to make sure that you're not necessarily creating something that's already been created. A description. This is where it's really helpful to help the team help you by giving it a really good description and a way to reproduce what you're seeing. So again, at the start, a bit of a summary of what you think you found, then how to reproduce it, such as if I click this, then I click this, then I do this, then I do that. What happens? The results, I see an error such and such, and the expected result is I don't see an error. And that makes it really easy for other people to reproduce and confirm the problem that you're having. Components. The entire code base is broken down to about, I think it's 38 components, from queries, post types, post formats, pings, trackbacks, multi-site, networks, etc. So make the best choice that you can of what you think it relates to. Focuses. Some of the components will affect multiple areas. So you might be dealing with an RTL, right to left format for Arabic or Hebrew languages, and it might only be in that area, so you can sort of add that focus. So it might be with the REST API, but only happens when you're viewing the site in Hebrew. And also only happens in the admin, not on the front end. So you can add things to sort of help narrow the spec of it. Again, keywords. If you plan on adding a patch, you can add has patch, or there's a bunch of other sort of feedback ones. We might add some unit tests, or we might want some screenshots to help document it. And typically the core contributors will go through most of these little bits and tweak and tune it through the life of the ticket. So we kind of end up with a ticket such as that. And that's really all you need to do to create a ticket. Most of the keywords, the focuses, the component, the version, severity, milestone, you don't have to worry about any of that. The regular contributors will update that and tweak all of that for you. The main thing is just a nice description and a nice title, and others will take it from there for you. At the bottom of each ticket, there's a notification section where if you click on that and you're logged in, you'll get notifications of ticket updates for that, which is a nice way to follow issues. If you created the ticket yourself, you're automatically subscribed to, and you'll get emails for it. But if it's something else from someone else, you can just hit the star button and away you go. Also at the bottom, for your first 4 tickets, a little notice comes down here at the bottom to say that this is your first ticket. And typically the first reply you'll see on your ticket is thanks and welcome to Trac, and people will sort of help walk you through the process. You're not expected to know it straight off the bat, and it can be a little daunting, so we add these little things to give us a bit of an idea of what, where, and where to go from there. Now back to this one, good first bug. This is something that we use to help get others to create and write a patch and get props into WordPress core. Could be a little documentation change. Just typically it's something minor and easy that'll work well for getting your first props in WordPress core. Why am I here? Okay. So also back on this home page, we've got a components section. And this goes through and documents all of our components in tickets that are happening, not happening. That's a list of the components. So you can, if you're interested in contributing to core and you've got something that you really fancy that you are interested in, you can then check out each of those components. Look at what is slated for future use in that component. You'll get ticket summaries. There's component maintainers that will, each sort of core committer has different areas that they focus on. Other contributors have focuses that they like stuff on. In this case, this is the build tools component. I help maintain that. It's just an interest of where I am with Grunt and Gulp and PHP unit and unit testing and all that sort of thing. These are other users that are just following along and watching the component. And wrong button, go back a bit. Oh. And via that same page, there's a link to the notification section where you can just check a box of any of those components and you'll automatically get emails for any ticket that is featured in one of those components. You can follow along those via email. And that's about it. Apart from core, all of WordPress.org projects use Trac. So it's similar amongst any of the contributor groups. There's mobile, accessibility, polyglots, support, documentation, themes, plugins, Meta, which is for the w.org sites, training, Flow, TV. So these are all just other areas of WordPress that you can contribute to. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions? Anything? Is it still terrifying? No? Would you create a ticket? Yeah?
How long have you been on that build, like being part of that main team?
No, probably about 12 months. So.
How much do you find you're like actually making commits and stuff?
I don't have commit access to WordPress core, so I just help. So for the build tools component, when there's new updates for the grunt tools and whatever, I'll make sure that they work and verify the patches and kind of just help the committers to understand the patch. And I'll kind of okay the patch and say, yep, that's good to go, commit that, and a committer will just run it in for me. So, cool. All right, well, thank you. Okay.
So thanks, Dee. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Aaron. I'm a front-end developer, and I work a lot on with custom WordPress themes. Tonight, I'll just be talking about setting up WordPress so you can develop on WordPress core. So this talk is aimed at developers that know how to install WordPress locally. They know the basics like on the command line with maybe Git or SVN, and they also obviously want to contribute to WordPress core. So in researching for this talk, I actually stumbled across there's quite a few different options in the way you can set up WordPress to contribute. So tonight I'm going to run through 3 of those options. There's just a really quick and simple one using SVN. There's a bit more advanced version with Git and Grunt. And then there's also another version you can do through VVV, which I'll explain shortly. So for the simplest option, you could just do a SVN checkout of WordPress trunk. So that's the one line you would paste in your terminal. And that would pretty much give you what looks like a normal WordPress install or a directory of files. However, this is like the latest bleeding edge version of WordPress. And from here, you could hack away on the files, like fix a typo, or maybe there's a small bug or something like that. And then from here, you could do what's called SVN diff, and then name the patch, and then you've actually created your first patch. So that's probably only recommended for something very, very basic, like maybe a typo or comment. And then obviously this is the patch, so you can, if you open this in an editor, you would see what's changed. So on line, was it line, I can't remember. Yeah, one line's been added on line 8 there, you can see. Okay, so that was the simple version. So moving on to the bit more advanced version, we have the Grunt and Gulp version. So to do this, you'd obviously need to install Node.js, NPM, and Grunt. And I've put these slides up online so you can follow the installation instructions there, if you click on those links. Then the next thing you'll need to do is a git clone of the latest version of WordPress from the develop branch, which is that one-liner in your command line there. The next thing you'll need to do is an npm install, so that'll go and grab all the node modules that are needed to build WordPress, so things like for compiling Sass and much more than that. And then you would run Grunt, which would then go and actually compile the Sass and run all those node modules. So after you've done that, you would end up with the files or directory structure that look something like this. So you've got the build, which is like the WordPress you've just built with your Grunt command. All the node modules have been pulled in there. And from there, you can go in and obviously install WordPress as you normally would. And for these 2 examples, I'm assuming you'd probably use something like MAMP or some other kind of database you would plug it up to. But, and also, sorry, with this version, again, you could edit some files and then run Grunt. And then you would run a git diff, which would give you basically the same result. So you just change one line, and then this could become a patch, and you could submit that patch. So moving on to the last or third option is VVV, which stands for Varying Vagrant Vagrants. So to set this up, if you haven't set up already, you'll need Vagrant, VirtualBox, and a copy of VVV. Which you just get from GitHub. And again, all the links are there. The instructions are quite tedious, so it'd probably take you maybe half an hour or so to set up. But after you've actually set up VVV, you'll end up with all of these ready to go. So you'll have a local, a source, and a build version of WordPress. So that's in the background, it's already done all the database configuration and grabbed everything that you need. And then from now, we can just, again, jump in, edit a file. Again, we would run Grunt, so it builds all those files, and then we can generate a diff or a patch pretty easily. So I've just put together a quick list of resources. So the main thing you probably want to look at is the core contributor handbook. So that's got pretty much everything that I've covered here, but in a lot more depth. There's also a nice tutorial on contributing to WordPress there, and there's a few videos from WordPress.tv that sort of kind of cover Vagrant and a few of these similar things. And that's all. So, cheers. Anthony. Oh, yep.
I presume if you want to, say, test someone's patch to put in a track ticket or something,
Yep.
You can use SVN to apply that patch.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of different commands for that. I think Pete might cover some of that shortly.
There's also a grunt command that we've got that allows you to apply a patch without actually having to download the file or do anything. You just put in that you want to apply the patch and the ticket number, and it goes against the patch file for the course track, which is very helpful.
Yeah. So yeah, that core handbook has all the shortcuts and all those little quick and easy things to learn. Any other questions? All right. Cool. I think that's it.
G'day, my name's Peter, and tonight so far we've gone through two things. We've gone through finding and bugging core and setting up the development environment, which is great. We're done. We can go to the pub. Except there's one thing we've actually missed, which is the whole contributing code to core. So that's what I'm going to cover, some of the actual steps of preparing a patch. One of the things that you'll often hear if you hang around in the WordPress circles is don't hack WordPress core. What's not as widely known is that that's only the start of the second sentence. The full sentence is the same, and it's the same sentiment held for all open source projects. Hack away and become an active contributor to the core project, because your hacks will help make the code better. So just for the purposes of the demo tonight, I'm going to start with something simple, hacking core to put in a WordPress Melbourne Easter egg. It would never make it into core. It's more plugin territory, really. So code submitted to WordPress core needs to follow the WordPress coding standards. The aim of coding standards is to make it appear as though the entire code base, written by many people, is actually written by one. And sometimes coding to a coding standard appears a little bit finicky, but it sometimes helps think about these things by reversing the question of what would happen if there were no coding standards. And we actually know what would happen without standards. Back in the day, the Victorian and the New South Wales railway systems and networks were built without standards, and they chose different gauges. So the width of the New South Wales railway tracks and the Victorian railway tracks differed by around about 10 centimetres. So they were built by different people, they looked like they were built by different people, and it made it difficult for users. Passengers would have to get off and change trains at the border when travelling interstate. And as developers, we're the passengers of the WordPress code base. Without standards, the coding style would change every few lines within the code base, and our train of thought would be broken as we tried to comprehend the code and had to adjust to the styles. So let's go back to this patch that we're contributing to core. There's a few things that we need to adjust to fit the WordPress coding standards. WordPress uses what they call Yoda conditions, so we need to switch around the condition. They do this because it helps avoid potential errors. If you use a Yoda condition and you miss the double equals, then it will throw an error and the code will not run. So it's nice, big and upfront that you've thrown an error. If you miss an equal sign without using the Yoda conditions, the title would just be set to WordPress Melbourne and the code would continue to execute. As well as Yoda conditions, the coding standards also call for spaces inside the brackets. My guess is that this is simply a comprehension issue. The spaces just make it easier to understand. And finally, we have one more simple change to make. Even one-line conditions need to be wrapped in braces. And this is for future-proofing and avoiding errors down the track. Because if that one-line condition becomes a two-line condition, introducing an error is much easier if when you come to add this second line, because you may not notice that the braces are missing. So let's go back to the code we want to submit to core. First step is to actually create a ticket on Trac, as Stephen showed us and walked us through earlier. So once you've created a ticket, this will give us a ticket number, in this case, late 32,000s. So after this, we need to upload our suggested changes. And in the context of the file, our changes looks like this. It sits within the getPost class function, and it's within the post template file. But when patching core, we don't upload the file we want changed. We need to upload just the difference, which are only the changes that have been made to the file. So in the root directory, I'm running off a Git with grunt, so I've got all the build tools. We run the command git diff, which gives us all of this. It looks messy, but there's a few key separate parts. We can see the file that has changed, the function that we've made the changes to. We can see the code surrounding our changes, and finally, we can see the changes that we want to add into core. So we can look and see at a fairly quick glance that it looks okay. So the next step is to actually generate the file, and the command is very similar. Again, we run git diff, we're outputting it to a file, and I tend to save them in my downloads directory because I sort of keep that as a trashy junk files. You could put it on your desktop, you could put it anywhere. And I like to name my files according to a fairly common naming convention on Trac, which is the ticket number followed by the version of the patch. So this is the first version of the patch. This allows me to make changes if I make a mistake and differentiate between versions 1, 2, and so on. And on our ticket, we then need to upload the file with the attach file button. And by uploading it, part of it is we agree to license our code to WordPress under the GPL. However, and this is something that's important for the WordPress project. You actually retain the code, the copyright for any code that you write and contribute to core. You're licensing your code to be used by WordPress and the WordPress community. This means that WordPress can't, down the track, change the license because they don't own the code, so they can't change any of the licensing conditions. WordPress will always be a GPL product for this reason. And once you've uploaded the file, uploading the file on its own isn't actually going to notify anyone. You need to add a comment letting people know what you've done. So I tend to summarise the changes that I've made, and then you add the keyword. So we add the keyword has patch, and then you can submit it. And this will notify anyone tracking and following the ticket or following the component that there's code ready to be committed or reviewed going into WordPress core. There's, as Stephen showed earlier, there's a bunch of other keywords available. I tend to leave them alone and just add sort of the basic has patch and leave all the other procedural ones for ready for commit and so forth to other people. And at this point, having uploaded and committed your patch, the code will be reviewed by another committer or a contributor or volunteer, and someone will look at it with a view as to whether or not it's okay to be included in core. And if all goes well, it'll be committed. Which, when you sort of go through it step by step, all this seems like quite a process, but it's really quick once you get started. I work in the glamorous document assembly biz. So for the last sort of 12 months, my only day-to-day WordPress work has been sort of contributing the occasional patch to core. So it's something that, yeah, you can go through it nice and quickly and get a patch up and going within a few minutes. But it's nice to get help with the process, and that's why we run the events like the upcoming Contributor Day, because then there'll be a few of us on site to help you out and help you get your patches uploaded to core in a couple of weeks. So really on the 31st of October, this is all tonight has been one giant ad for the Contributor Day that you're coming along to at Docklands Library from 12 noon on October 31. And come along and follow one of the fundamental rules of open source. Hack core and give code back. And if you want to follow the WordPress Slack, it's easy to follow the process and see how it works and learn how it works without actually having to jump in. And there's more than just core. If you don't want to hack core, you can write documentation, help improve the documentation for users or developers. You can help translate WordPress into another language. All these things are various ways of contributing to the WordPress core. And in fact, by coming along tonight to your local meetup, you are already contributing to the community by just being here and being an active member of the WordPress community. So thank you very much. Any questions?
I've got a question on about this, just a curiosity when you mentioned the open source aspect of it. Just recently, WooCommerce got purchased by WordPress. Will that ever go and become one within the core itself, or will it always be a plugin?
It was WooCommerce was bought by Automatic, who run WordPress.com, which is separate to the actual WordPress code base. So, so WooCommerce will never end up in WordPress core. And it will always be sort of plugin territory. But yes, it's just been bought by Automatic, which is the company that's owned by Matt Mullenweg, who founded WordPress, but it's a completely separate entity.
Not everyone needs WooCommerce, so you'll never get into core.
Yeah. Anything else?
What day was that Contributor Day again?
That Contributor Day was Saturday, October 31st at Docklands Library from 12 p.m. Thank you.
Do we bring a packed lunch to the Contributor Day?
Well, you know, probably be a good idea to bring your food. I'll try and grab some sandwiches and yeah. Bring along your, yeah, so we'll,
Can we bring kids?
there is a, the Docklands Library is a modern library with all the facilities that you'd expect from a library. No, that's, but basically bring along a laptop. We'll have people there to sort of guide you with code reviews, with committing, with writing documentation. So you just need to bring along your laptop and we'll get you set up with probably with Grunt and MAMP or something and yeah, help you write some patches or because the documentation for developers is actually coded within the code base. So all those big comment blocks that you see in the in WordPress code is what generates the documentation for developer sites. So that's how you can write developer documentation by actually hacking core. So yeah.
When you've committed, or when you've like put forward patches, how long does that, like if you see something that's wrong, you change it, how long is the process for like the people at, like the contributors to take that patch and actually like apply it? Like what's the kind of time frames that you see on the turnaround on that stuff?
It depends on the ticket. So I've had a ticket sort of turn around within 24 hours before because it's been a bug fix for following a major release. So, or it's been a suggestion on a blessed task. And so they'll go around and that will get in nice and quickly if you're sort of evolving of existing work. But I've also had restructure of some front-end JavaScript, sort of just sitting on Trac for a little while, since for the last release cycle, because it's not urgent. Nothing's broken, and they've got features to commit and bugs to fix and so forth. So it depends.
Yeah, so do you know, like, is there like a process for them to kind of manage, like, is the process good on their end that they'll be like, that'll actually get seen to at some point? Like, how do you know, like, if you're not doing something that's kind of like super important, like, if you're like, yeah, that's code, I want to see that change. Or you'll be like, yeah, like, submit my patch, and like 2 years later, they're like, hey, that technology's changed, we're giving you a patch.
So there are better people to answer this because I'm not a committer. I'm just, as I said, because I work sort of outside of the industry, I don't contribute. I don't, work day to day on WordPress, so I don't follow it along. But Stephen's probably got a better idea of how you navigate Trac to find something that will be committed. And I reckon a blessed task, if you're iterating code for that will get in fairly quickly because it's blessed for this version.
It's the element of chemistry. I had a ticket created the other day. It was in this computer's start in 15 minutes. And that was because the code that got introduced in the patch that was missing in the commit was quickly wiped out and it was done. But if you start looking at, say, the order of pagination of comics, all right, we've got 3,000 things there. People are just going to want a bit of time to think about it and try and run through their head at all the different scenarios of what can go wrong if you change that. And then we start to say, okay, there's a patch, now let's write some unit tests to go along with that, so we can actually test for what breaks, and that sort of thing just takes a bit of time. Sometimes, depending on how urgent it is and what their problem is, that time can go really quick, and other times stuff can sit there for quite a while. There's a ticketing track that are 8, 9 years old. I don't think we've got any 10-year ones left anymore. There's only a couple. One of them's guaranteed.
There's a few. There's a few 3-digit tickets remaining. One, and that belongs to Gary. So tickets can stay open for a long time, but they're also gardened fairly regularly, so that if you open a ticket and it's not going to happen, then someone will come along and say, no, that's I'm going to mark that won't fix, and that will probably happen fairly quickly during the initial review process. There's sometimes where it's all a bit, and everyone's got to make up their mind, and that review process of do we want to commit this into core can take longer. But the sort of the simple things are the nice quick wins and quick turnarounds if you want to get props that will,
Will typos give you props?
Yeah. If you fix a documentation typo, you will get props because like, even though it's sitting there in a comment and not actually affecting the code base, it's helping people develop WordPress. If you fix a typo, if you clarify some documentation, that's all going to make it a lot easier for someone coming along to learn about that function down the track. So yeah, you'll get props with documentation fixes. You'll get props with you know, yeah, some quite minor typos.
You don't have to submit a patch to get prompts. If there's a recent ticket, say comment pagination again, if you just work through and help test the patch that's in that ticket, write on that ticket what happened with the testing of it, all that side of things, and just help out with the ticket, quite often you get prompts just for helping you contribute to the discussion around the ticket. So that'll get prompts as well without actually getting down into creating patches.
Yeah, but the good first patch has, if it's had good first patch applied to it, it means it's a nice, small, quick fix. So even if it doesn't end up in core, it's, you know, something that you've used to experiment to learn about coding for core, and but you haven't written, you know, 10,000 lines of code to fix something. You may have written sort of 5 or 6 lines of code and gone through the process there to actually learn how to contribute. So, you know, even when you don't get it in there, it's, yeah, it can be worth it. We can show you more, Sam, if you... Yeah, Cup weekend, because some idiot with 2 thumbs didn't realise that it was Cup weekend when he booked the library. But yes, anything else?
Can you put tickets up for the track site itself?
Yes, but not on Trac. You put that on Meta, which is one of the other tracks that they've got there.
About 10 tracks. About 10 different tracks that WordPress uses. Plugins has its own, and 3D Press plugin tracks Meta. My 18. Yes, Forum. Meta.
Yeah. And you can also contribute CSS fixes to Trac if you don't want to actually contribute code to core. I'm just guessing that it was a CSS bug or an HTML bug because you were holding up your phone. Something minor. I'm going to... Jack.
So I noticed that there's also a design section of contributions.
There's...
Have you ever explored that area? Or like, is there wireframes and all the rest of it?
I have seen wireframes in tickets. So yes, there's a wireframing process, but I haven't actively followed it along because my design skills are dreadful.
Is there a that contributor day that being had to meetup.com?
Yeah, it's on meetup.com, and we've got a few RSVPs, but I'll be sending out, I'll be pressing the button to send you harassing emails tomorrow morning so that it will be in your inbox by lunchtime tomorrow.